What's up, everybody? So, I want to go ahead and do a little bit of a ramble here on Primaris Space Marines and the Unforgiven, and basically a real quick rundown of how the Unforgiven handled Primaris Space Marines, my thoughts on that, and what I'd like to see happen in the future. Because what 8th edition really represents to me is the real potential of storyline and plot development, not stagnation. Um, Fourth ed to fifth ed and so forth, getting into seventh ed for a little bit, and then seventh ed kind of started the whole spurring onwards to eighth and pushing the timeline forward. But for several editions before it, the timeline was pretty stagnant, if not kind of going back in time a bit and replaying certain events over and over. So eighth edition to me really represents a capability of an edition that was spawned forth from plot development forward and can continue that trend. So with that said, Primaris Space Marines were a part of this. A new subgroup of, not subgroup, but a new Space Marine concept to reinforce the depleted strength of the Imperium Space Marine chapters. And on first announcement of them and how we were going to get them and how they were going to be for the Space Marine Codex, the Dark Angels Codex, Blood Angels Codex, and the Space Wolf Codex, it got players thinking on all sides of the fandom of what was just mentioned, how are they going to be implemented? So with the Unforgiven, we were wondering, because of the whole Hunt for the Fallen thing and all that, how are they going to implement them, and basically what's the deal? So with that said, when we got the Dark Angels Codex, we got to see how they were implemented, and I think they did overall a good job with it. The one little gray area are Space Marine Primaris Librarians for the Dark Angels. Librarians for the Unforgiven and the Dark Angels are a part of that. So that codex, the Librarians are a rarity amongst the Unforgiven. They have them, but they don't have them in quite the same capacity numbers-wise as other chapters, non-Unforgiven chapters. Now, bear in mind, it's not like non-Unforgiven chapters have dozens upon dozens of Librarians, and the Unforgiven have like 4, but it is a smaller number, a smaller quantity of Unforgiven Librarians amongst all of the Unforgiven chapters. Due to the nature of their quest, due to the stringent training and purity regimens of the Dark Angels and their gene seed, and the Unforgiven and the Dark Angels gene seed. And as a result, the Librarians tend to be trained, I don't want to say to a higher quality, because if you look at stat line and stuff like that, you don't see any real difference. But lore-wise, they're trained to a more stringent standard, as they also assist in interrogations in the dungeons of the Rock. And as a result, all Librarians have the Inner Circle rule, because the way it's set up is that basically you have them helping out and interrogating the Fallen. So Primaris Librarians also have the Inner Circle special rule. But I feel like that's more of a, we shouldn't interpret it and take the literal meaning of it as meaning just that, but more so it's kind of just a way to keep all Librarians on the same page and not make you feel like you're taking a hit by taking Primaris. Like, oh, if I take Primaris Librarians, well, then I lose this rule. They kind of keep it, I think, for that sake as well. But that's all I'm going to say on that matter here, because that kind of muddies the waters a little bit. But the lore for the Primaris and the Unforgiven is very clear. The Primaris had to earn their keep. Now, this isn't unique to the Unforgiven, but I still like it. It's a good way of incorporating them into a chapter and into basically a pseudo legion, as the Unforgiven are, that are very insular, very kind of skeptical and paranoid about things, especially outside influence. So you have to remember also they're very smart, as Space Marines are, all Space Marines. So they're not going to try and resist the incorporation of Primaris. This gift, if you will, is a gift in name only, and it's basically a demand. You will have these reinforcements. You will be at strength to fight for the Imperium, or you're basically branded a traitor. So to not take them would have been heresy. So the Unforgiven accept these reinforcements, but they keep them at arm's length. They incorporate them into the battle line, to their structure, to their routine and route and all that. But the Primaris aren't treated as full-fledged battle brothers to the other Space Marines, insofar as being worthy of the gene seed right away, being worthy of being a son of the lion. They had to earn that keep. And being of that gene seed and understanding the Unforgiven's mindset because of that. It wasn't necessarily taken as an insult or meant to be a jab against them, and they went forth and they proved their worth. So the Unforgiven incorporated Primaris because the Primaris went ahead and proved their capability. So that's how the Primaris get integrated into the Unforgiven lines. Now, the lore specifically states right now, the fluff is as it stands. The Inner Circle is not comprised of any Primaris members. However, that is not going to be set in stone. Basically, they are aware of the very real possibility that a Primaris will, at some point, have the potential to be a member of the Inner Circle. Whether they're deemed truly worthy by the Inner Circle, which would be quite a large feat, even more so than is standard given the nature of Primaris, or the more likely route, I would think, a Primaris Marine of some capacity discovers and learns the truth for themselves, which can happen. And when that does happen, you're not just inducted into the ranks of the Inner Circle. You are basically given a series of tests and trials to prove you're worthy of the truth. And if you fail, you're never heard from again, basically. You could be, but by and large, the fluff basically states up you're gonna die if you don't prove your worth understanding the truth and the secret. If you can't prove that you are worthy of knowing it, then you're probably not going to last much longer. Very ruthless. So the Unforgiven understand that Primaris will be hitting that threshold at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. And why I really like this is because it kind of sets up the fact that, hey, it's not an open and shut case. It's not no Primaris or Inner Circle, that's a goodbye, but more so it's as it stands. Primaris is still new to the Unforgiven. There's not any in the Inner Circle yet because of how new they are to the Unforgiven, but given time, it'll probably happen. So with that said, I think that's really their best route to go with Primaris, and what I really like to see come from that is at some point down the line, whether it's another codex in 8th edition, like a redo or some type of massive update, or we go into 9th edition and then have a codex then, whatever the case is, whenever we get some type of official codex-like book for the Dark Angels again, whether it's to be an add-on or a replacement, what I would like to potentially see, depending upon, of course, how far the timeline progresses, again, this is based off my hope that 8th edition and onwards will push the timeline forward for 40k. I would love to see some progression in the Inner Circle and the Primaris insofar as, hey, some Primaris have learned the secrets of the Inner Circle. They've been inducted into the ranks. Maybe the Primaris Space Marines that are inducted were those that were created by Dark Angel's hands, and therefore they felt more safe in seeing their worthiness and letting them in on the secret. Whatever the case is, I would love to see some Primaris in the Inner Circle ranks, truthfully. And what I want for that is, I would love a unofficial kind of formation, almost like an unofficial company, but you can't have another whole company officially, I guess. But we have Deathwing, we have Ravenwing. I'd love to see a third wing, and one of the 6 be resurrected, whether it's Firewing, Stormwing, heck, you can even call it Dreadwing. Just resurrect one of those titles, perhaps do something unique to the color scheme for those Primaris, and induct them into that structure for any Inner Circle Primaris in the future. I think this would be cool for 2 reasons. A, you're bringing back a legionary thing of the Dark Angels into the Unforgiven, a whole other wing formation coming back or being utilized in terms of structure and naming. And B, you're doing it for Primaris. Primaris were basically created with the Legion structure in mind of having these dedicated support squads, basically, which is what Primaris are, in support of the more tactically flexible things like tactical squads or even Devastators or what have you. Because in the Legion time period, they had the numbers to have whole dedicated support squads. And the Primaris are basically a base off of that concept given form in the case of Intercessors and Hellblasters and whatnot. So you're kind of harking back to the Heresy and the Legion time period again by putting them into a third wing. I think that'd be just kind of cool all around. That's what I hope to see. I'm not saying this is what's happening bear in mind, understand what I'm saying here. That's my hope, my wish list, if you will, for the Unforgiven in the future, is incorporate them into a whole new formationary type of detachment and have some Primaris in the inner circle, and have that be inner circle Primaris only. I think that'd be really kind of just cool and open up some doors. Now, as far as the potential Primaris only chapters like the Blaze of Vengeance and the Angels of Defiance, I don't know what can happen with those things, but if they are counted amongst the Unforgiven, and if that's truly the case, then I have to imagine they also have a close-knit relationship with the other members of the Unforgiven, and if they are purely Primaris chapters, then utilize them as like a stopgate, meaning if they're near and doing campaigns in the area, and then the inner circle of the non-pure Primaris chapters, whatever one they are, the other Unforgiven, get a lead they got to go to, they can call in the Angels of Defiance or Blaze of Vengeance to kind of fill in the gap where they just left from. That's an interesting way to utilize them, but more information and fluff will be needed on those successor chapters specifically to see how they stand amongst the Unforgiven and all that. Anyways, that's my thoughts on what I like to see with the Unforgiven and the Primaris Space Marines, as well as a very brief, quick synopsis on how Primaris are handled by the Unforgiven. And I'm not saying it's super unique to the Unforgiven only, but the way it is handled, I do like. So keep up with that and actually expand it, like I mentioned, with what I'd like to see in the future, assuming that we're going to see the timeline progress forward, which would be awesome. And I think we'll have good stuff with Primaris being integrated into the Unforgiven without having it feel like it overrides the Deathwing or the Ravenwing feeling of purpose and all that, because I don't think it would. Anyways, what are your thoughts? Share them in the comments section below. And until next time, take it easy.